Denver Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain II took home the honors of NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Plus, Broncos head coach Sean Payton says that this team in 2025, they're going to be a problem. We're going to react to that and break it all down here on today's brand new episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, Broncos Country? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you know it is your team every day. Thank you so much to everyone in Broncos Country, all the everydayers out there, all those who make us your first listen of the day. We appreciate you so much for all your Broncos news, content, coverage, analysis, and more. You get that here, Locked On Broncos. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined as always by Sayre Bedinger, the site expert over there at predominantlyorange.com. And we got a lot to talk about on today's episode of the show, Broncos Country. We're going to wrap things up by going through Sean Payton's Radio Row Tour with Kay Adams on the Up and Adams show. He highlighted what the Broncos' top needs and must-haves are in 2025. He also said that the Broncos are going to be a problem this upcoming season with the young roster that they have. But we're going to kick things off on today's episode show by talking about the biggest news of the day. Pat Surtain II named the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year in terms of voting, and it wasn't even close. You get all that on today's episode of the show, brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel. Make sure if it's a new customer, you can bet $5, and if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Sayre, you know, the moment we were all kind of waiting for as we were watching the NFL honors last night, just hoping, saying, okay, hey, is this the moment where Pat Surtain takes home NFL Defensive Player of the Year? To nobody's surprise, he did just that.
He absolutely did. Pat Surtain going from being a highly questionable first-round draft pick in George Paton's first class with the team by a lot of people to now being the best defensive player in the NFL in 2024. Doesn't get much sweeter than that, and obviously the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, Cody, defenses, they were not trying to throw at Pat Surtain this year. Historically speaking, he's averaged about 11.4, 11.5 yards per target in his area. This season, that was down to 6.4 yards per target in his area. So what does that tell you? That teams, if they're throwing at Pat Surtain, they're kind of just whipping it out there as quick as they possibly can to see if they can get any inch on the guy, but he doesn't give up really anything. And I love the fact that he talked about this. It's so tough for a cornerback to win this award, but you and I have mentioned, man, advanced analytics and the access to all 22, hopefully, I would say, has helped cornerbacks and Pat Surtain in this instance specifically to win this award, because you have to actually watch the games. You have to actually watch the film to see and witness his dominance. And then when the ball actually does come his way, Cody, interestingly enough, 91 targets last year, 1 interception. This season, 62 targets, 4 interceptions. So the interception percentage skyrocketed, yards per completion, yards per target, quarterback rating allowed. Pat Surtain deservingly awarded Defensive Player of the Year after a dominant season.
And the biggest difference this year is that the Broncos finally put him in a position to do what he does best, right? That's playing press, man-to-man coverage. You talk about receivers not being able to get separation. When you got a guy like Pat who can play off-ball coverage, but in my opinion, his strength is playing press, jam at the line of scrimmage, man-to-man, being able to get up vertically, inside, outside because of his footwork, his fluid hips. That's the strength there. I mean, and he's long and rangy. I mean, Sayre, when you look at your perfect cornerback model in terms of body type, athletic build, Pat Surtain really is that in today's day and age of the modern NFL. And obviously, with him winning Defensive Player of the Year, he becomes the 7th cornerback in NFL history to do just that. More recently, it was Stephon Gilmore back in 2019. And you compare those numbers, Stephon Gilmore had more interceptions, but man, you look at the yards allowed, you look at the average yards per catch, you look at all those advanced analytics, man, Pat Surtain would have swept it, you know, in that regard there back in 2019. It's just crazy to think of how the game is today, a cornerback winning this award, and he becomes the 2nd Bronco in franchise history, right behind, guess who? Hall of Famer Randy Gradishar. So as you and I talked about, I think on an episode of the show just a couple of days ago here on Locked On Broncos, him winning this already cements a Hall of Fame stake for him, right? And it's like at this point, you look at Pat and it's like, all right, he's been the All-Pro. He's been a Pro Bowl starter. He's gotten all these recognitions year after year after year. Now he wins Defensive Player of the Year, which I think for any defensive player your goal is to win this award once in your year. And it's so rare to do it, right? We talk about the pass rush dominance, the guys that have been able to put up high numbers, like even Champ Bailey's historic season back in 2006. He didn't win Defensive Player of the Year. Von Miller lost to J.J. Watt on a Defensive Player of the Year campaign as well. Even guys who put up these elite numbers at different positions miss out on it. So for Pat to do it, Sayre, makes it so much more special here. And he's also a 2-time Mile High Sports magazine cover athlete. The newest one is available. You can check out milehighsports.com for that. Broncos Country if you want to get your hands on that. But to me, Sayre, now it goes to the question, right? I love that the Broncos put out a video of everyone talking about, like how proud they are of Pat. And you had some really historic names in there, guys who played the position. But for me, it's like, okay, how do you take it to the next level? What's next, right? To me, what's next really for Pat Surtain? Hopefully one day it's getting a Super Bowl championship. Really, that's all at this point. When you look at his whole body of work, if he has a Super Bowl, you could make the argument he'll be the greatest cornerback of all time when it's all said and done.
He's got the Pro Bowls. He's got the first team All-Pros. He's now got the Defensive Player of the Year hardware. So you're right, Cody. Getting a ring is now the biggest factor ahead. And I believe he obviously won the national. I'm pretty sure Alabama won every national championship while he was there. It feels like, that sort of thing. So he knows what it's like to win big. But I really loved that tribute video, Cody. I wish, I hate to nitpick something like that because it takes so much work and effort to put forth in that. But I would have loved to have seen Von Miller in that video as well, who's the best defensive player in franchise history. But it's so cool to see like Aqib Talib, Chris Harris, Champ Bailey, Peyton Manning, all those other guys come together. It's like the last episode of your favorite show when everybody comes back. I love that kind of stuff. So, but with Pat Surtain, you're right. The next step is that ring, because he's already got the contract as well. Like that's something that we already discussed last year. 4 years, $96 million contract extension, $77+ million in guaranteed money. I was telling my wife about the fact that Pat Surtain won Defensive Player of the Year, and her first question to me was, does he get extra money for that? And I was like, I don't know. I should look that up because that's interesting to think about. But I also explained to her, I was like, I think he's doing okay, regardless if he gets any extra money for that. But congrats to Pat Surtain because he sets the example in every possible way. He's a jersey guy. I put the jersey up behind me. If you're watching on YouTube, my kids have a Pat Surtain jersey. I feel like he's the type of guy that, man, you want your kids representing Pat Surtain. And Cody's got look at that. That's clean right there. That's clean. Cody, if you're watching the show, you see it, the throwback jersey just looking so nice. If you're listening to the show, Cody just held up like not the like replica version of the throwback Pat Surtain. This is the authentic, got like the cinched sleeves and everything right there, just looking real good. That's nice. That's a nice, hey, Broncos Country, if you haven't already done so, I think now's the time you could feel free and clear to go buy yourself that Pat Surtain.
Do it,
because he's that dude.
I just remember a lot of the takes after he was drafted. A lot of people saying, "Oh, Denver should have went after quarterback." Old takes exposed to going after some people today, and rightfully so. I enjoy to see some of that. And they're like, "Well, they should have taken Justin Fields." It all goes back to the Broncos, even Broncos fans too, and they even said like, "Hey, I'm guilty. Like, don't expose me." Like a lot of Broncos fans said that to me when I put the tweet out there. But, a lot of it was the Broncos, and I understand with the position that they were in with not having a quarterback, right? Not being, sold on that. They're saying, hey, like they should have, drafted Justin Fields. Broncos fans, a lot of them, and even a lot of national media people wanted them to take Justin Fields, even if they didn't love Justin Fields. Like that was the thing. And I think you and I even did a show reacting to it saying, hey, Pat Surtain could be a game changer here. And George Payton caught some flack for saying like, we feel like it's harder to find a star level corner than it is a quarterback, which certainly, you got to have some marbles to say that. And, now look at it here, a few years removed, pretty dang good decision by the Broncos on that night here. And I just think that the ladder for Pat Surtain, he's just going to keep climbing it. And he makes everything look easy, right? And Sayre, that was one thing I pinpointed as well. Like even when I watch him in practice, just a simple back pedal, turning, opening up the hips, something I did a lot in my career, right? He makes the harder stuff of that element look so easy and so seamless. His transitions, his footwork, And not to mention, he's just an all-pro on and off the field. This was a great moment for Broncos country, a great moment for Pat Surtain in his young career, and certainly breeds credence to what Sean Payton says, that in 2025, he believes that the Broncos are going to be a team that's going to challenge some people here. But look, Broncos country, we're not done yet. Up next, Sean Payton says that the Broncos, they're going to be a problem for some teams here in 2025 and going forward. We'll react to that and much more here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. This show is sponsored by Betterhelp. What are some of your relationship green flags? We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but if we're more focused on identifying the positive signs in our relationships, those green flags, if you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and even embody that green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you form relationships that you love back. Therapy helps you develop healthy boundaries and improves your communication skills and connections with other people. It also empowers you to set clear expectations and express your needs in relationships. You always need to advocate for yourself. BetterHelp makes it easy by offering online therapy with over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from. And if you need to switch therapists, you can do so at no extra cost. I've used BetterHelp therapy before in the past. It's helped me in my day-to-day. It's helped me foster and build on the relationships that I have in my life. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Broncos country, as if you weren't already excited enough about the offseason, now head coach Sean Payton has come out and said, we're going to be a problem going forward. And I love that energy, and I know you do too. In Broncos country, we're going to break down, what does that mean? What does it mean for the Broncos to be a problem in 2025? Sean Payton outlined the team's must-haves, their top needs, and we're going to discuss maybe what some of their biggest wants are on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. And hey, we appreciate you so much if you're an everyday listener already of the show. Mile high salute to all of you that tune in every single day. If you're not already an everyday listener, why don't you become one today? Hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts and get us at the top of your feed and algorithm every single day as we await to find out the answers to some of these questions, Cody. But it was already going to be an exciting offseason anyway. Then Sean Payton goes on the Kay Adams show and kind of divulges everything he said he wasn't going to divulge, which I thought was so funny. At the end of season press conference, he's like, in a couple weeks, we'll know our team needs after evaluating the roster. And he's like, but I still won't tell you what they are. And then he goes on Kay Adams' show and he talks about all these needs, must-haves, wants, and things like. It was just hilarious. The guy marches to the beat of his own drum. You love to see it, but more than anything, you love to hear the confidence without a single move being made. Sean Payton says that this Denver Broncos team, they're going to be a problem here in 2025.
I'm really happy.
And we're going to be, listen,
I know.
We're going to be a problem.
I know. You've been a problem to even the Chiefs that are in the Super Bowl. I do want to ask you, you're talking about the youth of the team. There's some really interesting, you fell in love with your quarterback, you got him. Now we got the draft.
We felt like we had a good rookie class.
The culture, everything that you've done in such short time, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like, now I want you to, I love Cortland. Great veteran, insane, amazing. I know you love him too. What are we looking to fall in love with here in the next couple of months? Are we going? Can I tell you what I think?
No, it's a fair question though, because we do the evaluation of our team.
Yeah.
And the purpose of that is then to establish what we call musts, needs, and wants.
And he certainly highlighted, quite a few of those there. And obviously, we're going to get into that here on today's show. But for the fact that, he said, we're going to be a problem, and he mentioned that we really liked our rookie class, Sayre, it goes back to what he had said. He had told Greg Penner and Kerry Walton Penner. He said, looking back on it 3 or 4 years from now, we're going to look back on this draft class and say this was the one that did it. It just goes to show the level of confidence that Payton obviously has in these guys. And also, you got your quarterback. You've answered that question you've been searching for and asking yourself for a handful of years as an organization, and you did it in, I think, the most wild circumstances possible, considering the Russell Wilson dead cap. So for Denver, almost $90 million in dead cap this year, to be where they were at, to be as young as they were, to compete the way that they did, I think it speaks volumes. And now you get these guys more ingrained, more comfortable in the system. Sayre, I'm with you on this one, and I believe Sean, and I even said this too, because you and I, we caught flack from people by saying we think the Broncos are going to win 10 games. I went out in training camp and said they're going to win 10 games this season. People called me crazy, but you see, like, just being around the guys and seeing it, you're like, hey, there is something special here, and it hasn't even reached its full potential just yet.
Which is really saying something, because I think you look at this team last year, like you mentioned, 90 million in dead cap, which that's 1/3 of the salary cap. So like you're already down 1/3 of the entire salary cap. And on top of it, you had one of the top 3 youngest rosters in the NFL, and you still managed to win 9 of your 10 games that you did win, which pats on back for Cody. You called that one. They won 9 of those 10 games by 2 scores or better. So they were blowing some teams out this past season. Just imagine what this team could do if they can flip the script on 1-score games, where they were 1-6 this past season, 1-6 in 1-score games. So I mean, it's really one of those things to where, hey, you got blown out once by Baltimore. You got blown out in the second half against Buffalo. The gap, though, I think people assume it's way bigger than it is. And you heard that from Sean Payton. Like, I think fans assume, like, when he talks about, okay, we have our must-haves, we have our needs, and we have our wants, there was really one specific thing that he put in the must-have category, and I think it's something that we're going to be talking about a lot over the next handful of weeks.
Must, needs, wants. Okay.
So who are our musts?
Your must, you need a veteran wide receiver. That's what I think. I'd like to see you.
I would say we need a joker.
You need a Reggie Bush.
An interior, and a joker now can be a tight end or a running back that has exceptional. We were spoiled here.
Yeah.
When you think about it, all right, you had Reggie, you had Jimmy Graham, Jeremy Shockey, Darren Sproles, Alvin Kamara. Those are interior, either tight ends or running backs.
Jokers.
That they have to be elite receivers that play tight end or running back. And then you get the matchups, and we had quite a few of them here, because you're getting too high defense and you have to work the inside. And
I really wonder what he means by that, though. Like, what does that look like? Who does that look like? And is that guy, Sayre, is that guy on the Broncos roster? We've heard Sean say it so many times that, you know, he says we got some candidates, but it's like, who could that really be? Like, I think we look at it, and what he's highlighting right there pinpoints it's not a guy like Javonte Williams on this roster. That means that Javonte will not more likely be back here. Jaleel, I think, has the potential to become that, but I think the size factor is obviously something where it's like, can he really become the Joker, you know, at the size and the stature that he's at? To me, it's like, if I'm looking at anyone that maybe has a chance on the roster right now, Blake Watson kind of fits that bill a little bit, but I don't know if Sean's going to go into 2025 saying, all right, Blake Watson, you're the Joker. Let's get ready to roll. So, I mean, there's so many options that Denver could go with here, but it's important he highlighted that as must have.
Right. And I think it is the must have, because we saw Greg Dulcich get cut mid-season. I mean, Lucas Kroll led the tight end position with 19 catches. Adam Troutman led the tight end position with 188 receiving yards on an entire season. Like, and so those are just unacceptable figures. And then you look at the running back spot where, hey, it's interesting to note, like, Alvin Kamara has never rushed for 1,000 yards. So when we talk about a joker, it's not necessarily somebody who's going to be carrying the ball 300 times, right? It's not that kind of a guy necessarily. It's somebody that, hey, they're probably going to be able to get 1,500, 1,600 yards from scrimmage, but that it's not necessarily going to be that bell cow running back. And that's what Sean Payton alluded to earlier the offseason. Like, it's not necessarily going to be a bell cow back situation in Denver, but somebody who can be featured in this offense. And that's what, like you said, it's not, I don't know that it is on the roster. It could be Blake Watson, but I don't think Sean's going to go into the offseason saying, hey, it's Blake Watson or bust for the Joker. I think that you and I discussed this earlier this week. For those that didn't get a chance to hear, I think we were talking about this on our Bleacher Report stream, where we talked about this idea of, hey, do you want the Broncos to like target somebody specific for this Joker spot, or do you want them to throw a number of darts at it with the draft, free agency, trades, what have you? Because Sean Payton has found those guys every which way. Every guy that he just mentioned, he acquired by a different means, right? Draft, free agency, trade, day 3, you know, early round picks, etc. That's where the Broncos, I think, Cody, they need to be throwing some more darts this offseason.
Well, so Sean telling us that the must-have is a joker here, and not really saying like we need a running back or we need a tight end. It's either or, right? So that leaves more mystery for us throughout the entire offseason. very curious to see how it all formulates once free agency comes around, the NFL draft, as to, as you mentioned, how they try to attack this. And part of me does think like it is the dart throws. Like you have to figure that out. You have to take a couple of shots at this position here. But also what he said to Kay Adams, and it makes a lot of sense too, especially he said with the NFL playing those two high safety defenses now, you need to be able to attack the middle of the field. And the only way to really do that is, can you attack it in space or even on a delay with a guy who's athletic and gets those mismatches against linebackers? That might be the key here going forward. And look, obviously for the Broncos to become a problem, they're going to obviously have to add that joker, whatever position it may be that Sean Payton envisions, to the mix here. But we still have more for you here, Broncos Country. Up next, Sean Payton highlighted some of the other needs and maybe some of the wants that the team has from a positional standpoint. You get that here on today's episode of the show. Today's Lockdown Broncos podcast is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook, and Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown of the game, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just the icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Today's episode of the show is also brought to you by our friends over there at PrizePicks, and the big game is almost here, just a couple of days away. And there is no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks, they make it fun and they make it simple to get in on the action. So here's how it works for the big game here on Sunday. You pick more or less on at least two player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks, they even have a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw for 1 yard to win. You pair that with one more correct pick and you're cashing out. So make sure you check it out. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. The fourth quarter action of today's episode, Lockdown Broncos, is here. Thanks once again to all the everydayers, first listeners out there in Broncos country. Make sure you stay tuned in every single day, all throughout the entire offseason, because for the true fan, guess what? There is never an offseason. Your boys, Cody and Sayre, we got you covered every single day here on the show. However you choose to engage with the podcast, we appreciate you so much here, Broncos country. More from Sean Payton as he made his rounds around Radio Row, and really the only round he made was to Kay Adams, who he's got a really good relationship with. I feel like if you ever want to find anything out about the Denver Broncos, maybe where they're going, we need to find a way to bring Kay Adams to town, or to send Sean Payton to Kay Adams, because that's the only way things are getting out of the building. Sean is not very keen. And look, I'd say this is a good thing too, especially about being a reporter. Like, they're not letting anything out to people. There's no leaks inside the building. So if Sean's going to say something, it's going to come from him himself. And I think Kay Adams at this point is the only person who can get it out of him. And obviously shout out to Kay, for the ability to do just that here. But, he highlighted that the must-have was the joker position here for the Broncos. And there's a multitude of ways they can maybe go about that. But I felt it was also interesting too, because Kay brought up specifically, she brought up, as you heard, veteran wide receiver, adding a receiver. You and I have talked about that as, hey, is it a big need for the Broncos? Like, they absolutely have to do that? No, but it's nice, right? But for Sean, his categorization is entirely different. It goes must have, needs, wants. There's three buckets. So it makes it a little tricky to figure out where things are at. But here's what Sean Payton said as to what the team needs.
So
where does a veteran wide receiver go in which bucket?
I think a veteran wide receiver fits in a need.
Not
and
a
yet,
must-have.
man, I would say we're stronger there than some would think.
Okay.
A Devon Bailey, Troy Franklin. There's a number of receivers that we drafted a year ago. We'll look closely through the middle, inside linebacker, safety. There'll be a few other positions.
I think that's a great way of kind of describing what you and I have talked about on the show before, Cody, and things that we've written about as well. That, like, hey, the fans may not be overly thrilled about it, but I think the team really likes the young receivers. And not pictured in a way in that video clip right there was the waxing poetic that he did about Marvin Mims as well, when Kay Adams brought up, hey, here's my favorite play from the season. And then Sean was like, going on about Marvin Mims and his growth late in the year, which we all saw, which was tremendous.
Yes.
So yeah, the young receivers, like, we want to see these guys continue to grow and succeed. So what kind of veteran can come in and play a certain role? Because he did characterize that in the need bucket. And what's fascinating to me, Cody, is I've been having so many weird debates on Twitter.
I've seen.
I don't understand it. People are like splitting hairs over what he said and being like, well, he didn't say veteran receiver. Kay Adams said veteran receiver. Go ahead and play back the clip. Sean Payton said veteran receiver. And then people are telling me, well, he's just doing that to appease Kay Adams. He doesn't want to make her feel weird. And I was like, well, that'd be weird that he would do that, because he kind of like jutted in when she started saying veteran receiver. And he said, I think we need a joker. Joker's the must have. So he already corrected her and said, like, no, it's Joker. That's the top thing. So I don't know. I'm going a little crazy over here, Cody, with some of these discussions that we're having. And then it's not just veteran receiver. It's like, well, is it an expensive veteran receiver or an inexpensive veteran receiver? My goodness, everybody. A receiver is needed. There's no question about it. I love the Cooper Kupp tinfoil hat ideas. I'm here for it.
You should share yours here, because we shared it on Bleacher Report and we didn't get to share it here on Locked On Broncos.
That's right. I forgot that we haven't talked about that. So in that interview with Kay Adams, Sean Payton starts telling a story about how he's in Cabo hanging out with his wife. He's hanging out with the Broncos quarterbacks and their wives. And he has all these people over to his place in Cabo. And sure enough, who shows up at this, that he invites Sean McVay and Sean McVay's wife over to this little gathering and get together. And I was like, very interesting timing that he would invite Sean McVay and his wife over to his place in Cabo with the Broncos quarterbacks. And then Cooper Kupp, timing is not coincidental, posts on Twitter about how, the Rams informed him he's going to be traded. Put your tinfoil hats on with me for a minute here, Broncos country, and let me live. This is the offseason. We got to have some fun theories, right? So Cooper Kupp to the Denver Broncos. Here's my tinfoil hat theory of 2025.
Well, you have the George Payton and the Seahawks GM on the napkin in a bar theory right now. This is the Cabo theory, and maybe it'll come to fruition here. Maybe that veteran receiver, which, to your point, and I've seen some of the debates you've had on Twitter, and I agree with you. I think people are trying to split some hairs on it. It's like, but people are like, well, what's the point of, Josh Reynolds and Tim Patrick? It's like, the reality is they want something else at that position, and they could get that, right? It's maybe something that those players didn't offer that maybe somebody else offers. And when you're in this season, like obviously the Broncos, they released Josh Reynolds. They realize like, hey, this isn't the fit. This isn't what we're going to do. And to me, I think that's very important. You look at a guy like Cooper Kupp, as we've highlighted here. Veteran guy, captain, does the dirty work, and man, his tape, if you watch it, especially down the stretch of the season, watch him run routes against coverage, folks. And I guarantee you, if you're off the Cooper Kupp train, you're going to be on it, because then I think to myself, you add that to the mixture of this offense, and let's say Denver adds that joker, right? Whatever, if it's tight end or running back, and they address a couple of these other positions defensively. To me, I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that this Broncos team is going to take a step back in 2025. Like that's the formula. That's it. I found it interesting though, that in that same exact clip, in terms of what we just last played here, he goes out and he mentions inside linebacker, which you and I have highlighted as a big need here. And I think Broncos country would agree. He also brought up safety, which is very interesting.
Yeah, we talked about that in a recent episode when we went on the defensive backs kind of review and preview for the offseason. Like, I mean, it's no secret that PJ Locke, I think, was on a kind of a trial run this past year, signed a 2-year deal, deserved a starting gig after what we saw in 2023, but he did allow a passer rating in his coverage of 125.8, and that's something that you have to look at closely if you're the Denver Broncos. Like, was that an issue over the course of the entire season? Was it a couple of bad games? I think it's fascinating considering we know Brandon Jones was really good, and there's no question about that. And he was mostly available, but safety, I think that's one of those positions. It's so deep in free agency that, I mean, there's maybe just a situation to where you're like, we can't not sign somebody from that group.
Well, it all goes back. Even Greg Penner said that, hey, like, We're in a position we could be aggressive if we wanted to. We don't have to be. Part of me thinks that the Broncos are going to be aggressive here in free agency this year, Sayre. I have this creeping feeling kind of going over me right now that it could be very busy. Like Denver could make 3 or 4 quality moves, and that could include maybe a trade for Cooper Kupp, but maybe going out there and getting a safety, a linebacker. We'll see if they do running back or tight end in free agency. And even if they added a tight end in free agency, it wouldn't surprise me if they still focused on adding one in the NFL draft, right? Because that position room as a whole still has a lot of room to grow. And hopefully, yes, Lucas Kroll can continue to develop. You still have Adam Troutman, who's on the roster. There's Nate Adkins, who may just switch to that fullback hybrid role if Denver doesn't bring back Michael Burton. So there's a lot of roster flexibility right now and some maneuvering and some things that you can add positions, you can add veterans, you can add rookies, and you can level the playing field, right? You can have competition. It's going to amplify and make you better. Think that there's going to be some interesting things coming up here for the Broncos. And look, Broncos country, the number one place you want to be here every single day. When you don't want fluff, you want objective, real Broncos talk. You get that here at Locked On Broncos every single day, literally all year long, because for the true fan, there's never an off season. There's a lot of fun things coming up right now. NFL free agency is in just about a month away. We'll have you covered with that. Anytime something happens, you'll get breaking news on that. Then it's the NFL Scout and Combine. Then it's the NFL Draft. Then it's OTAs. Then it's a little bit of a break. And then it's training camp. And then the season's going to be here once again. Really, it is year-round here. Locked On Broncos. With that said, Broncos country, don't forget to check out Sayre's written work over there, predominantlyorange.com. You can check out mine, milehighsports.com. Also get me on the TikTok on social media at Cody Roark NFL. Post a lot of clips, a lot of Broncos reaction stuff over there. And check out Sayre's YouTube channel as well that he's got. You get to see a little bit of day in the life of Sayre Bedinger. Awesome stuff there. But look, Broncos country, we appreciate you. You make the show exactly what it is. For all you everydayers out there, the next time you're going to see us, the Super Bowl will conclude. And what can the Broncos learn from the two teams, the Chiefs and the Eagles? What can they take away from whoever wins that game that they can apply to maybe put themselves on a path to getting to the Super Bowl? We'll react to that and much more on Monday's brand new episode, Locked On Broncos.